Hey guys, an album review, and this time it is for the 2013 release Mutiny Within II Synchronicity. I listened to this album so many times when it first came out, but I never actually got around to reviewing it, and here it is, I suppose. I'm a very big fan of Mutiny Within's first album that came out in 2010 through Roadrunner Records. They're not exactly a very well-known band. I've never really met anybody who knew them, maybe a couple people. But I think that they're one of the most underrated bands out right now to so many different levels, and they really showcase that on their new album. Now, I don't like it necessarily as much as I do the first album for certain reasons that I guess I'll explain later, but this album is one of my favorites throughout 2013 so far. Anybody that has listened to them, or at least, well, knows about what kind of happened, is that for a while they were on hiatus because their first album didn't really sell well, excuse me, because of illegal downloading that mostly people were torrenting or just kind of getting the first album for free. So they didn't exactly have the funds to create the second album, which caused them to be on a hiatus. During that hiatus, I believe some of them had different projects. Chris Clancy, the vocalist, was doing his own kind of stuff, and that's all fine and whatnot. But it was something that I was really excited for. This new album, at least, is I was really excited for this new album. I'm sorry, I cannot talk. In any case, this album, I think maybe I expected too much from it. My computer went dim. I expected too much from it because it didn't exactly satisfy me as much as I had hoped. It did. I really did like it. I still do like it. I still listen to it from time to time, but it wasn't as good as I expected it to be, which, I mean, change over time happens, and just some of the tracks that they were putting out before, like the song In My Veins, they released the demo for it that never made it to the album. I want to say at the beginning of 2012, and I was absolutely blown away. It was just awesome, and I believe it was because they were on the hiatus, so they just kind of threw it onto YouTube and was like, here, this never got anywhere, but listen to it. And they redid that song and put it on the new album, and I think that the remastered version, the whole redone version, I should say, is even better than the original. There are so many aspects that have improved over each individual member, especially Chris Clancy's vocals. His vocals in the first album were good enough as it is. They're very operatic, and he knows how to. I'm trying to find the right term. He has a very melodious voice. I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly, but he knows how to incorporate the melody of his voice into the melody and the rhythm of the music. And that's the thing that really drives Mutiny Within, is the melody and the rhythm coinciding together. Such as the lead guitar work for the first album is some of the best guitar work I've ever heard, period. The song Suffocate, which is my favorite track by them out of their very small discography, just all the guitar work on it is constantly a driving force in the song. And even the rhythm guitar is just, most of the rhythm guitar for them is pretty standard chugging, which that's all fine and dandy too, because it complements it so well. And I feel that there was a lot more of that melodic guitar work on the first album than there was the second. The track that they released a few months before the album's release was called Embers, and which was basically, I guess it was kind of about what happened to the band with how the illegal downloading was hindering them from really having good album sales. And I honestly don't really like that track that much. From the first time I heard it, I was like, not really my thing. And it's the first track on the album, which I think could have been replaced with something else, but I'll elaborate more on that as well. Like I said, the cover, well, not cover, I'm sorry. The redone version of In My Veins is absolutely amazing. That is, if you've never heard of this band, at least go check that out and have that as a pretty solid introduction. Either that, Suffocate, basically any song on their first album will work. Though, like I said, In My Veins is on the new album, but it's still a very, very good track. Screaming was incorporated to a very minute extent on the first album, where it was kind of just interlaced with some of the vocals. It wasn't something that really was dominating any of the songs, so to say, so to speak. Like I can't, but it was more just occasional high screams that really showed up. Sorry, I think my computer's dying. But and I thought that was okay too because Chris's voice is just absolutely amazing. I can't even explain it, but his screams have improved so much. I can't even just exponentially. They have improved a lot from the debut album, and that is just awesome because the track, which is my favorite track on this album, called Machines, it basically hits, I believe, the halfway point of the album, and it is just constant curb stomp to the mouth. Like that's basically all it is, and that one has the most growls and screams that I've heard him use throughout both of their albums, and that is, and he still has the clean singing, which is basically dominant over both of their albums, and for the most part, it doesn't really tinge on the metalcore side. Most of it is sounds to me more like melodic death metal. A lot of people will say it's power metal. I don't listen to a whole lot of power metal, so I couldn't really tell you. But whatever it is, it I know that and to some extent it is incorporating different elements from different subgenres of metal. And I know a lot of people don't put so many subgenres, blah. That's the best way I can explain it because there's a lot of there's just a lot of stuff going on in the album. Not that there's no consistency, because there is very much consistency, which I think there's a lot more on this album than there was the last album, though it's still there are much heavier songs than there were on the first album, but there's also very soft songs than there were on the first album, which at times I think it can be kind of over dramatic sounding, some of the songs. Some of them just to me sound like some of those sappy breakup songs, which I don't really care for lyrically. But Chris Clancy's voice, the way he sings, it's so operatic, so melodious. It's good enough for me, and still the music is solid. All the instruments. The drumming on this album is absurd. It's just so good. It's a whole lot better than it was on the first album, which on the first album it's very good as well. But this album, it really did catch my ears, I suppose. It really did stick out for me the way that they incorporated some of the drumming into the way the flow of the songs went. Their songwriting, the song structures, for the most part, are pretty standard, especially by the quote-unquote power metal means, where it's the verses are pretty much just a lead up into the chorus, and the chorus is very full, very big, very operatic, and then it goes back to the verse, which sometimes it'll kick it up a bit. Now, another thing that really improved on this album than the last album was the lyrics. Now, the lyrics on the first one are solid as well, but they tended to repeat themselves a lot, and that got very old very quickly, where it was more the second verse would basically be the same thing as the first verse, but they'd like take words away, add different words in, and for the most part that would get kind of frustrating. It wouldn't flow as well, I suppose. But this album, it sounded like they really took their time with it, not just for the lyrics, but for the songwriting itself, because there isn't as much of the melodic guitar work as there was in the first album, but when there is that melodic guitar work, it is absolutely crushing, and that is the beautiful part. The first half of the album, minus In My Veins, like the first four songs or so, I want to say, which includes Embers, Falls to Pieces, and what's the song called? One sec. I'm not even gonna bother. Just the first 4 or 5 songs, minus In My Veins. It's okay. At first I was like, this is not what I expected. But the last half of the album, especially just when it starts with machines, is when it really kicks off. There's still some soft parts interlaced into the songs, but when it comes to like the last track and a track called, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry, just one of the tracks on there, I suppose. Balance. That one's very good as well. That's the one I'm thinking of. That one is another one that just really does pound your skull in. And the last track called The Unsaid, that one was just a beautiful finisher to this beautiful album. It's not a perfect album by any means, and it could still use some work, but this was something that may have never happened because of their situation. So I appreciate what we did get, well, what I got at least, for what it is. It's still a very good album. I wouldn't say it's better than the first by any means, but there are still some very good tracks. There's a lot of great guitar work. And before I forget, the one thing that I think didn't really change that much was the bass. Now, sometimes I think that the bass for them is really hard to hear. Honestly, it kind of gets lost in the mix, at least for me. If I'm stupid, just let me know. But most of the time I can't really hear the bass, but when I do, it sounds pretty basic to me, mostly following the rhythm guitar work, that's fine, But I would, I'd like to see more from the bass guitarist, just more emphasis on him at sometimes, especially with the drumming. I think that if they could just throw in something really groovy with the bass and just have that incorporate into the drumming, I think that would be fantastic. It'd be very, very cool. But 4 minutes left before my laptop dies, so I should wrap this up. In any case, I say this is an 8 out of 10 album. I say go check it out at least once. Go show those guys some support, because I think that they really need it, and they definitely deserve it. They are fantastic musicians. They love their fans, and this, like I said, it may have never existed, so I'm very happy about this. Could have been better, but it could have been so much worse, which I'm glad that it wasn't. That would have really pissed me off, because I was very excited for this album. But go check it out. It's great. I love it. And it's on Spotify, so if you have that, you can listen to it completely for free, and they have it on YouTube. So, see you guys later.